Hey up, this is a video all about applying scale formulas to chord shapes. Now because this is one of 3 videos, you may be missing some vital information to get the context you need for the video to make sense. I've included a link to the video that explains how this stuff works, and you can find that link in the video description below and in the card just popping up in your screen right now. So now we've done the chord 1, what we need to do is we need to look at chord 4. These are the 7 chords in every diatonic key, and this is in the major key. So the chord we're going to focus on now is this one, and this scale has its own formula. It is essentially the same as a major scale, but the difference is that this has got a sharp 4, and this scale is a mode called Lydian, and it's a really bright sounding mode. And that also means that if we look at the scale formula, we've got a root, we've got a third and a fifth. So this major triad here works with Lydian as well. So we're going to fill this out the same way, and I'll be pretty quick with this one because I hope you understand what's going on here, and I'll talk my way through it, but I'll do it quickly. So this is the root. I can see that's an E-shaped octave, so I'll just bang those there. The next note I need is going to be the second. That's going to be a G shape, so I'll put that there. There's the G shape. The next one is going to be the third. Remember, we've already encountered that before, and there's the other third that we have there. The next note we need is the fourth. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Whereas before the third and the fourth were next to each other, because it's a sharp 4, what we have to do is we have to raise the pitch. This is up the neck, and this is down the neck. And that's what happens with pitch. So we want to think pitch. We can think of it in that manner there. So we've got sharp and we've got flat. So we go flat, we go that way. Because this is where the fourth was, and if I need to turn that into a sharp 4, I need to move it up 1 fret and put that in as a sharp 4 just there. Now I've established where that is, I can figure out the caged octaves and where this note is going to be duplicated. And because it's on the A string, remember we're starting with this root note here, so this is going to be Lydian starting on the 6th string based on this triad shape. So if we take that sharp 4 over there and we're going to replicate this as a C-shaped octave, that's what's going on there. After that, we get the 5th. We're going to replicate that exactly the same way we did the sharp 4. We put the 5th in just there. Brilliant. We've sorted with that one. Now we've run out of notes that we can have on the A string, so we're going to move to the D string. And after the 5th, you can see that we get the 6th. So let's put the 6th in. This is unaltered. It's exactly the same as the major scale. So we're going to put that right next to the 3rd. Remember, look, we're getting 3, 6, 2. This is really important. Okay, so 3, 6, 2. We've got that going on there. So the 6th, this is on the D string. Let me take it up the appropriate octave, which is a D-shaped octave. We go up 3, we go over 2. So this is going to be the 6th just there. So we've got the 6th there, 6th there. We've got a lot to get through. This is why I think it's important if I just run through it quickly. You can always rewind, watch this again, slow it down using the YouTube browser. Next note we need is the 7th. We've done all the others now. Well, let's put that 7th in, because remember, nothing has changed here. That 7th is a half step away from the root note there, and we need that 7th back up here because we have another root note just there. We've got that E-shaped octave there to act as bookmarks for whatever scale formula we put in there. And that's an interesting way of looking at scale formulas, guys, because if you think about it, that's what's going on there. That's the formula there. That's one bookend and that's another bookend. Sorry, I said bookmarks, but I meant bookend and bookend. We can have whatever books we want on the shelf, and this is the way to think of scale formulas. So there we have Lydian. But this is all orbiting around that North Star of that E shape. So it's the E shape that this pattern is moving around. And what you need to do is you need to isolate where these different intervals are. Focus on where that sharp 4 is. Isolate it. Play little sections. Don't try and consume the whole thing at once. So the next shape we're going to have is this A shape here. This is a root. I know that comes from this A-shaped octave that lives just there. So let's fire through these. So we know that that's going to be an A shape, but this one here, this second, is going to be a C shape. So let's put that there. The next note we need is the 3rd. We've got one here. This is on the B string. And if I go over 2, that's going to put it here. Same shape is replicating itself. And that doesn't surprise me really, because the sharp 4 isn't really that far away from the major scale. The next note we need actually is the sharp 4. So remember, that was where the 3rd is. This is where the 4th should be, but we're going to put it here. So this is going to be the sharp 4. That lives there. And you can see that the sharp 4 is half a step away from the 5th there. Now what I'm going to do is plonk this over in this E-shaped pattern here. I can see that it can be replicated here as a sharp 4, but I'm going to leave it off this E string for the moment because I don't think this is the easiest way to play the pattern if we have that started on the sharp 4 on the thick E string there. It'll make sense once I've fleshed this whole pattern out, and it will look like one of those patterns that you've played before potentially. Right, let's put the 5th in. So we can see that the 5th is on the D string. The E-shaped octave jumps over onto the D string, so we know that this 5th is going to be here, and we know it's going to be over here, if I can spell it right. There's a 5th, there's a 5th, there's a 5th. Okay, that's sorted. Next we do 6th. The 6th goes here, and that's going to be mirrored on the E string. But because it is further up the neck, it has to go back, so it's going to be a G-shaped octave on that one. So let's put that 6 there. Look, we can still see we get that 3, 6, 2 happening again. And then the 7. Let's put the 7 in next to that root note there. We've worked that out before. We can see that happens over in the E shape. So we're going to do exactly the same thing here. Again, I'm outlining the root note there. We've got a 7 there. And then you can see what happens is this pattern, it just becomes a little bit easier. If I put the sharp 4 in here, like I mentioned, then the temptation is to use this as the root note, especially when we move over into other shapes other than the E. We don't want to start thinking of this as being the root note is always on the E string, because it isn't. That's the whole point of this lesson. The A string is where the root note is, and that's the tonal center for your sound. But just to be complete, and because that is an E-shaped octave, I'll just bang it in there. And it's up to you if you want to start on that one. You could start on that note, you could start on that note, but really what you're doing is you're focusing around that root note there and thinking about the underlying chord that is happening. Right, so the next one we're going to do is this D-shaped one. So it starts on the D string, just like the A shape starts on the A string, and the E shape starts on the E string. This D shape starts here. So we go root there. We're going to find the 2nd. We know the 2nd's here. This goes backwards this way to get the E-shaped octave. So let's put the 2nd there, the 2nd there, and we're building these intervals in. We can start to see where they crop up as well, so we can think of that as being a compound 2nd if we wanted to, or a 9th. So it's a good way to help you to start to understand your intervals as well. So we've got the 2nd in there. Let's find the 3rd, of which we already have one. That's on the thin E string, so if we just mirror that on the thick E string, we can see that it's higher up in the shape, so we need to go back onto the G string to find the 3rd again. So we bang that on there, and there's the G-shaped octave just there, guys. Now remember, this is the sharp 4, so we've got to be careful with this one. If you remember, the sharp 4 and the 5th were a half step apart. If I look here, I can see that we get my 5th just here. If I put the sharp 4 here, this is going to help me to find out where the note is on the other octave, because this is on the G string. It means it's going to be repeated on the A string as well. So if I come over 2 strings and back, then my sharp 4 is going to go just here. Because we worked it out from that 5th being a half step apart, then the 5th is going to go just there as well. So that's sharp 4 in an A-shaped octave and the 5th in an A-shaped octave. Now this is going to be where the 6th is. This is going to give me a C-shaped octave, which goes just over there. Next note we have is the 7th. And remember, the 7th was a half step away from the root. So if we put that on there, there's the 7th. I could use my octave shape, but all I need to do really is look at where my root is and then just think I'll go back a half step, and that's where I find that 7th. And that fleshes out the pattern for me there, guys, right? So this is Lydian. So now we need to look at chord 5.